this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and welcome to video number 2 in this Express Liquid Mongo build. So last video we set up all our files, which is all fun and good. Now in this video we're going to focus on setting up our database connection. So I'm going to do that in the models folder. So I'm going to set up a file called connection.js, and the purpose of this file is just going to be to set up like the actual database connection. So for this, we're going to need to import Mongoose. So I'm going to say const mongoose equals require mongoose. Okay, so const mongoose require mongoose. And we also need to bring in .env because we need to have our environmental variables. So make our .env variables available via process.env, and the way we do that is we just say require .env. That brings in the .env library. Then we're going to run the function config that it comes with, which then reads the .env file and then adds all those variables to this process.env object. Okay, so we got that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that database URL out of there, so that way it's just like a little bit less verbose. Actually, that's not. Let's just connect to the database. So I'm going to say mongoose.connect. The URL is going to be process.env.database URL. So notice that this variable matches whatever I called it in .env. So since I called it database URL here, it's going to be process.env.database URL. So that's how environmental variables work. It's all based on what I call them in the .env file. But what does that variable, what is the value of that variable? This is the value of that variable. Okay. Now I go over here. Then we got to pass in this config object. This is just to avoid certain warnings. So it's going to use unified topology, which will be true, and use new URL parser, true. Okay, and there we go. So this line connects us to Mongoose. That makes the actual database connection. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to save the connection in a variable. Okay, which we'll just do const db equals mongoose.connection, because the connection variable is the actual connection that got created by mongoose.connect. Okay, and then we're going to create some notifications, so that way, you know, when the connection opens up, we get notified. When the connection closes, we're notified, etc., etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is say db, because that's the connection, .on, that's the function that allows us to set up events, and we're going to say, hey, when the connection opens, do this. Okay, so I just wanted to, when the connection opens, I wanted to console.log you are connected to Mongo. Now while I can chain these on methods together, just to kind of make it a little bit clearer, what I'll do is we'll just make them separate lines. So the next one is when the database closes, I want to say you are disconnected from Mongo. And actually that's not closes, it's close. Okay, it's disconnected from Mongo. And when the connection has an error, so there's an error informing the connection, that's the event, then that particular thing will receive the error, and all I really want to do is console log the error, so that's fine. So there we go. So these will just make sure that I get certain notifications depending on like the state of the connection. So as the state of the connection changes, these things might get triggered, which is going to help me kind of know what's going on. Okay, and then we're going to export the connection. Okay, and so I export the connection. So I'm going to say module.exports. That's how you export things in Node. And all I really want to export is Mongoose. That's all I care to export. Okay, so that's that. That's done. Okay, so this will connect to the database when I use it. Okay, now what I'm going to need is I need a schema. Okay, the reason I need the schema is that's how I know what kind of data I'm working with. So we're going to create a new file for our to-do schema that's going to describe what a to-do is in our database. So a new file, call it to-do.js in our models. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to not import Mongoose directly from Mongoose, but I'm going to import that version of Mongoose that our connection file exported, because that one has already been connected. That one's already has a live connection to the database. So I want to use that object. So what I do is I'll just say const mongoose, and really all I really particularly need from here is I need to grab two functions out of here. I need to grab schema, which is technically a constructor, and I need to grab model. That's all I really need outside of Mongoose. So require Mongoose. What this does is it's going to grab those two particular things outside of the library, so I don't have to like do mongoose.schema, mongoose.model, and all that stuff. And that should be good. So now I need to create the schema. So import what I need. And then we're going to create the schema. That's the description of what a to-do is, the schema. So const to-do schema equals a new schema. And it will pass an object here. And every to-do is just going to have a property of, you know, action, like the thing you need to do, which is going to be a string, and a boolean for completed, which will be a boolean. Okay, and then that's about it. And then I'm going to say like the boolean will default to false. So actually, let's change this. We'll say this is type of string. So that's what it is. It's a string, but I want it to be required. You have to have something here. So true, and then the default. So basically, if we don't specify a value, what is it? It's going to default to false. Okay, and then the second argument here, I want the timestamps. So I'm going to say timestamps is true, which automatically generates the created at and updated at timestamps in the schema. Okay, so there we go. That is what a to-do looks like. It's going to have an action property, which is like the string of the thing you need to do, and a completed property, which just means like on and off, like did you do it and didn't you do it? And then timestamps for like created at, updated at, that kind of thing. So now we're going to connect this to a model. So we're going to create the model. And I'm going to say const to do equals a model, and then the model is going to be called to do, and the model is going to follow the to do schema. Okay, and then that's essentially how this looks. Okay, now I need to export that to do so I can use it in my other parts of my code. So export the model. So module.exports equals to do. Okay, and there we go. Now that's done. So again, I made this file connected to my database. This file took that and created a to-do schema. And now the last thing I'm going to do for this video is we're going to set up a seed file so that way I can add and subtract things from the database outside of my app, just like a C file to run some seed code. So the way we set this up is, so if you've used like things like Ruby on Rails or Laravel, you're probably familiar with like seeds, where you can kind of pre-seed your database with data. That's all this is setting up. So we're going to want our database connection. So I'm going to say const mongoose equals then we're going to require a connected Mongoose, which is /. And I realized I don't think I did import import just a new Mongoose object. So I want to fix that. So I want to actually not import from Mongoose, but import from the connection. Because again, this connection file is exporting a already connected version of Mongoose. So I want to use that. Same thing here. I want to export // connection. And then I also need that model to do equals require // to do. Okay, cool. So those are the two things I'm going to need. So now all I want to do is just say, hey, when the connection opens. So I'm going to save the connection in a variable. Save the connection in a variable. So I'll say const db equals mongoose.connection like we did earlier. Okay. Then I'm going to say, hey, I want to do some code when the connection's open. So db, so run seed code when connection opens. So const, no const, db.on when the connection is open, run this code. Okay. Nice. So first thing we're going to do when this connect code opens is we're going to want to delete all the existing to-dos. Because the idea is we don't want to reseed this with the same data multiple times. So we also want to clear it out. So running the seed is also essentially a reset on your data. Okay, delete all existing to-dos. So we're going to say to-do dot remove many. Okay, to-do dot remove many. Let me just make sure that I'm exporting that correctly. Module that exports to do. Okay, to do that, remove many. I want to remove many, so I want to remove all of them. So that's going to remove all of them. Again, that's going to return a promise, so I can say .then. And then this is the code that'll run after it's done deleting all of those. So in there is where I want to add the data. So add seed. Well, first is make the seed data. Seed data. So what I'm going to do here is create an array. So const seed data equals an array of all my starter to-dos. So again, this will be action eat breakfast. And that's all we really need, because technically there's a default on completed, so it'll just default to false. So all I really need to do is add the action piece from our schema. So I'm going to say eat lunch, eat dinner, eat brunch, eat more food. Okay, so now I'm going to take that seed data, create new to-dos from seed data, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say not then. I'll do to-do dot create, pass in the seed data. Okay, and then I can be like then when that's finished doing its thing. Okay, and we're just going to say, I should get back a whole bunch of to-dos. So in this callback, I should be getting back my to-dos. So what I'm going to want to do is console.log those to-dos just to confirm that they were created. And then I'm going to want to close the connection. So db.close. Cool. And then that should do that. Okay. So again, what am I doing here in this file? And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a script, go back to my package.json and create a new script called seed, so I can seed my database. I could just run the file manually, but I always just think this is a little bit more suave. And now I can do like node models slash, and actually it would be like, yeah, node models slash seed.js. Let's just try that out. So if I do npm run seed, that's the command it should run. So it should run that seed file. Oh, let's see, here we got some errors. Oop, remove many. So maybe it's delete many. To seed here. Okay, so I guess that was the correct function. Let's try this again. Yep, that one worked. So it's delete many. So you can see here, there's the console log of the created to-dos once all that ran fine. So we got data in our database. Wonderful. I mean, I can always double check by going to over here on Mongo and actually looking at it. So if I go back to here, I can go to browse collections and I can see all the different collections and see here's like Liquid to-do app, and there's a to-dos collection, and there's the to-dos that we've created. So the data exists. So our database is up and running and working. Okay, so we know that. So we know the connection works because our seed file worked. We know that our connection works, and we know there's data in the database. So we're all set here. Again, the next step will be sort of like, again, setting up our server. But I'll see you guys in the next video for that.